Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. It's very good to see you. Thank you for joining me for the session. Is your networking not working? I absolutely love doing this session, mostly because of the folks that show up. And I know it sounds a little crazy, but the folks that always show up to this, man, you guys are always a chatty bunch. You're always here to network, and I really enjoy that about you. So don't disappoint. So I love you. I love that you burn up the comments generally when I do this session. I really enjoy that. So let me know where you're from. Let me know where you're from. Let me know maybe what you've been trying for networking. Let me know like maybe what your struggles are, and I probably know maybe a little bit about it. We're going to be talking about this. If you have been through this session before, this session has evolved a little bit just because I'm getting good feedback from folks uh, about what you need. So if you do see this coming up again in the future, I am continuing to evolve these. So hello from Ireland. Hello, Adam. Welcome. Where are you at from Ireland, and what are you currently doing for networking? What kind of line of work are you in? Do you have your own business, or are you doing something for someone else's business? I would love to know that too. So go ahead, put that in there, and we're going to get started right away. So a couple of things I just want to mention to you folks. So Adam, you are it's late there. It's about 9 o'clock at night there, right in Ireland. Hello from St. Louis, Mo. You are in Central Time. I'm in Eastern Time. It's good to see you, Michelle. Hello, and it's good to see you. Let me know what it is that you guys are doing. So, a couple of quick things before we get into the session here. Is your networking not working? A couple quick things. I know it's really super easy to try to multitask when you are in the session here. I'm going to ask you try to do your very best not to multitask. I know you're on your computers. I know you're on your phones. I know you're trying to get other stuff done. I know it's getting close to Christmas and the holidays season and all the stuff that we're buying out there buying for our loved ones. But just do me a favor over the next hour, please stay plugged in. And the reason for that is because that might also tell you why you're not super effective in your networking. Because if you're in a networking situation or if you're in a networking event and you're not staying plugged into the individual in front of you, if you keep checking your phone or you're looking over the shoulder of the person that's in front of you, that might tell you why you're not as effective at networking as you could be, right? Like, think about it. If you're in a sales situation and you were being sold to and the salesperson kept looking over your shoulder and you're like, are you okay right now? Like, what are you doing? If you were being super distracted, that's obviously not going to bode well for you as a salesperson, right? So think about that in the context of networking as well. So train your brain. Please stay plugged in over the next hour. For those of you who are going to ask, yes, you will be getting a replay of this that will be sent to you directly in your email. So my domain is markdolfini.com. That's the email address it's going to be coming from. So please just watch out for that in the next day or so, and you will get that as well. One other quick thing for those of you at the end, I don't have anything to sell you. I'm not here to sell anything. I will be referencing my book, but I'm not here to sell that. I do have a community that I would love to invite you guys to if you are interested. So I'll talk about that at the end if it's something you want. No cost, but it just depends on what your level of what kind of involvement you want for that. So anyway, let's get to it. So is your networking not working? Let's talk about that. The value that I want you to start to think about this in the context of value. First of all, let's say hello to some of our other folks here. Tushar from Berlin. Hello. It is good to see you. Man, it is late there too. I think it was at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock there at night. Hello from Wisconsin. Hello, Catherine. It's just the afternoon for you, although it's probably snowing where you're at in Wisconsin right now. We got some pretty good snow here in Indiana just recently. It's been cold here. Hello from Nashville. Hello, James. Very good. Business coach, just getting started. Excellent. Very good. I've got quite a few friends down in Nashville. So thank you for joining. Adam, you are in regenerative agricultural consultancy. Very good. I've mostly been attending industry related events. Okay, very good. So the main thing that I want you to start thinking about is what value are you bringing to your network? Right out of the gate, I want to start at this. I know I've got an agenda that I want to show you guys. Ava from Florida, health specialist, practitioner for chronic illnesses and weight loss. Very good. There is Ava's website if you'd like to check her out. So yeah, and by the way too, feel free. I know this is, like I mentioned earlier, this is one of my favorite ones because you guys like burn up the the comments section, because you guys generally tend to attract a lot of networking folks. So if you want to share your contact information, it is out there. So just want to let you know, let the buyer beware. I don't know a lot of you. I might know some of you, but I don't recognize any names. But again, if you like sharing LinkedIn profiles, things like that, please go ahead. Feel free to do that. But again, just try to stay plugged in to what we're talking about here, because I want this to be valuable for you. So I want you to think about what value that you are bringing to your network, not necessarily what value you can extract from your network. So I want you to think about that in the context, and in this entire context for the rest of the hour that we're going to be talking, is what value are you bringing? What value are you bringing to the network rather than what can you get from your network? And the reason why that's so important, and this is something that I learned from my BNI days. I was in BNI for about 14 years altogether. And for those of you who are not familiar with BNI, it used to stand for Business Networking International. Now it's just known as BNI, but it's global and it's a networking organization. And I learned a lot about networking and how to do it wrong. And for those of you who are who ever affiliated or familiar with BNI, you're going to hear some of the concepts that I learned from there. But really, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about giver's gain. It's about bringing value to the people in your network, bringing value to those people, not always coming to them to ask, not always them to say like, hey, asking them to buy your stuff. That's just straight up selling to your crowd. Rather than trying to sell to your crowd, this is about networking. This is about bringing value to them. And what about bringing buyers to your other people, right? How about doing that and establishing that in terms of reciprocity? We're going to be talking about that in terms of these 7 principles of persuasion later on. But the main component of that is reciprocity. So I want you to think about this and really start to think about what value that you have brought. Have you been a giver or have you been a taker? Be honest with yourself, because if your networking is not working, chances are you're being too much of a taker. You keep showing up trying to sell to people rather than bringing value to your network. So I'm not going to ask any of you to indict yourself if anybody can relate to what I'm saying, but is there some truth in that? Is there some truth in that for me? Yeah, if I'm being honest, sometimes I do kind of try to sell rather than trying to bring value to my network. So this is all about establishing and maintaining trust. Now, there's 7 components to trust, and these main components here, there's around 2 main areas around competence and character. Look, bringing trust and demonstrating trust, or creating trust, I should say, with whoever you are networking with rises and falls on your character. If you are demonstrating any lapses in character, and I will tell you this, there's a couple of folks who I've worked with in the past who they would go to networking events and they would just get rip roaring drunk. And look, I'm not here to tell you that you should drink or not drink. I don't drink. Not that I won't drink. I just, for me, I'm 53, so the recovery time for anything beyond 40, does anybody know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like a day of therapy. Like, the recovery is just far too long. Like, when I'm in my 20s, I could digest plastic. Now, if I have a beer, it's like 2 or 3 days. I just don't feel right. So I just don't drink anymore. It's not that I won't. I mean, I may on occasion have a glass of wine or something, but I'm just saying, like, for me, that's a demonstration of character when someone can't handle their alcohol, or let's say that their language is too loose, right? That sort of thing. Or let's be honest, a lot of times people show up to networking events as if it's like some sort of dating scene, where it's some sort of pickup scene, right? And it's not just men, by the way, right? It's men and women that are doing the same thing. They get a little bit too flirty. They get a little bit, and these are married people. Sometimes they're in committed relationships or whatever. But my point is, it demonstrates lack of character. And that it doesn't matter how competent someone is. If you're demonstrating at the beginning or at the end or at any point in between a lack of character, they're not going to trust you, and you may never know why. I hate to drop a truth bomb this early out of the equation here, but I'm here to help you. And if you start thinking back like, yeah, I did not do that super well, and I've had lapses in that. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes around that sort of stuff, and that's how you absolutely have to bring and demonstrate character in creating trust with your tribe, right? So the other thing around this, especially as a professional, is about demonstrating competence. And the fastest way to build trust is by demonstrating competence. It's by demonstrating that you know what you're talking about. Now, in networking events, rather networking situations, it may not necessarily always be about demonstrating competence. Sometimes it's just casual conversation, and it's that always that person that always finds a way to bring it back to work. You're like, oh gosh, dude, drop it already, right? But in this particular case, when you can demonstrate your competence, especially in a selling conversation or especially in a networking conversation, to say, "Hey, look, I noticed you mentioned a friend who has X, Y, or Z issue. I would love to connect with them because I have something that might actually help them." And they would say, really? And they're like, well, just, not to get too deep on it, but I've noticed that when this happens, and that's something that I can definitely help with. Loved it. I would be more than happy to connect with someone in that situation, right? So you can start to demonstrate competence in a way where you're not punching them in the mouth with birthday cake. You're like, dude, like enough already, enough selling to me. That's where you can demonstrate competence, but you've got to do it. You've got to do it appropriately. You've got to. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the VCP process, the visibility, credibility, profitability. The other components of trust that I mentioned there's 7 of them, right? The other components of it, I think they are fruit of these 2 trees. I think character and competence, I think they are 2 trees that share a symbiotic root system, and one feeds off of the other. And the fruit of those 2 trees is related to the remaining 5 here, which is around caring, which is confidence, commitment, communication, and consistency. So again, we've all heard it. People don't know. They don't care what you know, right? Or they're not going to care about what they know until they know how much you care. That is so incredibly true. You've got to demonstrate some caring about human beings rather than just profitability. You've got to demonstrate confidence in that you know what you're talking about. You've got to show that you're actually committed to what it is that you're doing, not just, well, I'm just going to try this for a while. Who's going to want to give you a referral if they don't feel that you're committed? If they don't feel that you are really committed to the outcome other than just lining your pockets? That's really true. And I want to be, also want to demonstrate this too. Hello, Ricardo. Hope Mills, North Carolina. Very good. You're an IT and data privacy consultant. Very good. So welcome. So the thing about commitment too, and I see this in a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, who tend to be in a lot of different things, who tend to have their hands in a lot of different pies. And that shows a level of inconsistency, right? So we're going to talk about consistency. This is also relates to consistency, but it also relates to commitment. If you're committed to all these different little things, you're serving too many masters. That also shows like, well, how much do I want to give you a referral if I think you're going to be in insurance today, but tomorrow you're going to be selling essential oils, right? Think about that. Think about how your level of commitment is showing up to your network. That's really important. And I also want you to think about your communication. How effective are you in your communication? And not just not dropping F-bombs and things like that, but also in your consistency in your communication. This is one of the biggest things that I hear. And I know some of you are going to drop off here because you've got different commitments and so forth. And again, if in case you came in late, you will be getting a replay of this. So if you do have to hop off, I totally get it. But the level of communication is, in terms of consistency, this is the dead giveaway. And I keep this stack on my desk just for a prop. But this, right? Does anybody have this? Right? What is this? Everybody knows what this is. It's a stack of business cards, right? That you just happen to have from your last networking or series of networking events, right? Makes sense? And you have no idea who these people are. You're like, wow, I don't even remember these people's names, right? So eventually you end up tossing them in the trash because you realize you either follow up with them like you were supposed to, and you are inconsistent in your communication. I'm telling you, that's probably the biggest, that is the biggest violation that I see in networking. Not only, I mean, again, this is confession. This isn't judgment. This is confession too. I've done that where I've taken someone's card, totally get back in touch with you, and I don't, for various reasons. And that's because I'm inconsistent in my communication. So it's not just how I'm communicating, but how often am I communicating? And just because I reached out once, I want you to think, what's the mechanism that I have in place to reach back out to them? right? How do I know, for example, this guy, I'm not going to mention his name. All right, I'll mention his first name. This guy, Joel, I know exactly who he is, right? So this guy, Joel, have I made a commitment? Is he in my CRM? Is he on some sort of list somewhere in my infrastructure that I know to reach back out to that guy in 30, 45 days, 60 days, something like that? Do I have something like that in my CRM? I actually do. He is in my CRM and I know exactly what he's looking for. I know he's actually got a book he's trying to promote more of, right? Okay, great. Right. And he was asking me for help on that. So I should be, it's not his job necessarily to remember me. It's my job to remember him. And I need to have a mechanism in order to do that. That's part of the infrastructure we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Okay. So this is all stuff that you need to start thinking about if you're really going to be taking your networking to the next level, and quit just doing random acts of networking. That's what I'm talking about. This is like random acts of marketing, random acts of networking, same type of thing. All right, Tamara, good to see you. Tamariel's family and wound certified. Sorry, these words are really, really small. Nurse practitioner during the day and wellness coach filling in the gap. Okay, very good. I email all cards I get right after meeting. That's great, Tamara. And my question then is, what do you do? What do you do to make sure that you reach back out to them within 45 days? And then 45 days after that, or 60 days after that? Do you have a mechanism to do that? Do you have anything? And if you don't, that's okay. I'm not here to, you don't have to answer. I'm just saying, this is where you start to have a CRM. I don't care if you do it on an Excel spreadsheet, using Pipedrive, using Salesforce. Salesforce would be complete overkill for this. But my point is, whatever that is, I don't care if you have it on the back of a paper towel. You have to have some mechanism to make sure that okay, cool. I emailed them this time. I sent them a text message this time. I dropped them a handwritten note in the mail this time. I'm going to send them a video, a short video, something along those lines. After that, how are you reaching them, and what's the multiple different ways? Are you connecting with them on LinkedIn? If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I can guarantee you will not get a response. You know why? Because I don't connect on LinkedIn. I don't use that as my mechanism. So this is why you have to start to reach out to people in multiple venues, multiple avenues. All right. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about all this stuff, and especially as it relates to a holistic view of how we're doing our networking. So remember, the value of your net worth is directly related to the value of your network. I'm going to give you an example of this really, really fast. Google Calendar. Okay, so you actually put follow-ups with each of your people in Google Calendar every single time. Is that what you're saying? If you do, that's great. I'm just telling you, you would be unusual because most people are not that intentional. But if you are, that's fantastic. I love it. So so I'm just saying the value of the net worth is directly related to the value of your network. So for example, I have a unusual funding request that I'm looking for. And now and I'm trying to get a certain loan on some properties that I have. And I reached out, I went to my local banker, and my local banker was giving me a very not favorable type of loan. And I was like, this isn't going to really scratch the itch that I need. So I hunted around a little bit, and I reached out to a couple different people in my network. And there was one person in my network that I reached out to that I knew he knew some people that could do some creative things. And I reached out to him, and he says, I got 3 guys right out of the gate. The first guy I called says, yep, I can do exactly what you're looking for. It's going to be a little expensive up front, but we can do what you want. I say, okay, how expensive? And he told me, I was like, okay, yep, you weren't wrong. It's a little expensive, but on the back end, I really am going to save a lot of money over time. And I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, right? And this person, okay, so just to give you an idea of what this is going to cost me or what it's going to save me, it's going to save me about $14,000 a month in payments. Just to give you an idea. And what does that allocate to over the course of a year's time or 5 years' time? That's a lot of money. So I just want you to start to think about the value, how that translated from one phone call in terms of what that could be for my net worth and what that could mean for my family. All right. Tamara says yes, and set 1 day a week. I am. Very good. Tamara, that's amazing. And I'm telling you, so your networking from that aspect is probably covered. But I will tell you, but the other thing that I would ask you then is, are they always emails? Because I will tell you, if you want something ignored, generally email me, right? I am getting better because I have people helping me now, but email is not my preferred contact method, although I will email people. But generally for me, especially people who know me and know me well, texting. Like I really respond well to texting or even direct phone calls. I know like in this day of like, yes, this thing actually makes phone calls. Yeah, if you're wondering about the goofy sticker on the back, that was from my daughter. So she's 3. She decided that and I'm really impressed because she put the sticker on without like covering up the lens. So I'm pretty amazed that she knew how to do that. Anyway, let's get to the agenda. So the agenda, we're going to be talking about the Viper methodology, the Viper framework that I use to put businesses together and the structure of businesses. We're not going to, I know not all of you on here are business owners, and that's okay. But I just want to go through a couple of things through the Viper framework. We're going to be talking about the 4 core functions of business. We're going to talk about lead generation specifically. Then we're going to get to some networking functions, and then, of course, different success strategies. So we're going to be wandering a little bit here because there's different pieces I'm going to be bringing into the lead generation strategy, because there's some people on here that are business owners and there's some people that are on here that are not. So I'm trying to make this specifically around networking, but there's recognizing that there's different avatar in this audience. So please just bear with me here a little bit, because I'm going to try to cover everything that's going to be relevant to all of you. Let's see. No calls first, then text, email is last. Okay, so you're hitting them in multiple ways. That's great, Tamara. That's fantastic. And that is what's really important. So again, Tamara's doing a lot of the things right, is recognizing that some people want to be connected with differently. And if I get a phone call, in fact, there's this guy, James, who calls me. James is one of the few realtors that actually stays in contact with me, even though I've never bought anything from him, but he uses me and he references me a lot, and he can send people my way as I can send people his way. Right. So what we're going to be talking about is a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. And this Viper framework, I just want to let you know that this is a top-down approach to looking and managing a business, especially as you're setting it up from top down. So let's go through the framework here real fast. Viper is an acronym for Vision, Infrastructure, Process, Execution, and Reporting. So this is, I'm just going to, Viper is really where you want to go. And we're going to I'm going to unpack Viper here in just a second, or Vision here in just a second. But the infrastructure and processes, infrastructure is like the bones of the business, the desks, the chairs, the software, things like that. I mentioned earlier that a CRM or some sort of thing that you're using to track how you're connecting with people, that would be part of infrastructure. If you don't have that, or if you're not utilizing something like that, generally many companies are going to have things like, again, HubSpot, Go High Level. I use Pipedrive. I really like Pipedrive. But even companies that are larger, that have these enterprise systems that really they're going to connect not just the lead generation activities, but sales activities, operational and fulfillment activities, accounting functions. That's when you're looking at a total, ERP, enterprise resource process program that's going to be part of an overall enterprise system. It's the whole organization, right? Organization wide. You don't necessarily, if you're a smaller outfit and you don't necessarily need anything like that, a lot of these SaaS programs are very robust. They can do a lot of really cool stuff. Honestly, I really like Pipedrive. Pipedrive has been really, really cool, and it does a lot of the things. But again, I'm not endorsing any of them. It's just the one that I use. But Go High Level is fine. There's lots of other people who really like Go High Level. But the thing is, I don't care what you use. People ask me which is the best one. The best one is the one that you're going to use. That's straight up. If you're not going to use it, then anyone will be fine. Okay. All right. So we talk about vision. We're going to come back to vision here in just a second. But ultimately, vision is where you want to wind up. It's ultimately where you want to go. Infrastructure is the bones of the business, the desks, the chairs, the software, the CRM, things like that. Process is how you do stuff, both from a tactical day-to-day perspective and from a strategic, where do we want to go perspective, right? You're the strategic planning. So it involves both tactical and strategic. Execution is what you're going to do every single day. It's the things that you're going to do that you're going to execute on that are in alignment with your strategic plan, that are also in alignment with your vision for the future. And also the reporting function. The reporting is just the results of what you did. It not only measures what you did, how many networking events and networking functions you attended over the last month, but what are the results of those networking functions? How many people are actually coming in as a direct result of your networking, or other lead generation activities, or sales activities, or your production output, or what is your profitability? How much cash do you have in relation to sales? For those of you who have been in my financial literacy for business owners class, I think I'm holding that session tomorrow. For those of you who've ever been in that, you know what the reporting functions look like, and there are key metrics around that. So let's go back to vision for just a hot second. So vision has two separate components. Vision involves both personal vision and business vision. So from a personal vision perspective, I want you to think of just fundamentally, where is it you want to go? Where do you want to wind up? And that's a critical component, because especially if this is your business, and if you're a business owner and you're thinking, well, where is it that I want to go? And you're like, I don't know. I just got this business. Most business owners and many people who are very career driven, they only have a business vision, or they only have a career vision. And the business vision is basically going to say, like, well, cool, how are we going to get there? Well, if you've never created anything related to a personal vision and you only have a business vision, then basically your business vision becomes your personal vision. And the danger in that is, when you have a business vision without a personal vision, you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. Or said another way, if it's around a career, and if you have a career vision before ever creating a personal vision, you end up creating a life that exists to serve the career. So I'm just saying that life sucks. I've been down that road for more than a decade at a time. And I was like, man, what am I doing this all for? And I've been in masterminds with people who have made 6 figures and 7 figures a month net profit, and they were miserable, because guess what they were doing? They're making $1 million a month, and guess what their next goal was? To make $2 million a month. And they had no enjoyment in their life. They were confusing fulfillment. They were they were confusing achievement for fulfillment. And there wasn't any. They were so unfulfilled. And I'm just telling you, I'm trying to tell you this now so you can avoid going another 10, 12, 15, or 20 years and seeing that same trap. So James is saying, vision statement, where do we want to be? Yeah. So basically it's where you want to go if your life wasn't defined by income generation. Okay. That's really what I want you to think about. All right. Your why is so important to keep anchored in the hard days. Yeah. And I will tell you that the why, I think a vision is actually deeper than why. Because your why can be a series of, I think your vision is a series of whys, because there's a lot of things like, some of my whys are related to my family. Some of my whys are related to my education. Right now, I'm in a PhD program for organizational psychology. That's part of my why. And it's for deeper understanding. It's just been a goal of mine for a long time. Now, it's not necessarily about the PhD as much as it is about the education and the learning. But yeah, it'd be a cool goal at the end of all of that. Right. So I'm just saying, I think the vision is a series of whys that you kind of string together. That's the way that I look at that. But very, very good, Tamara. I really like the way that you said that. James, mission statement. How are we going to get there? Yeah, that's a great way to think about it in terms of a mission statement. And the mission statement can really be, it's that business vision, right? Is the business vision specifically. Now, I come up with the way that I help define the business vision specifically, not so much of a mission statement. And you can craft a mission statement out of these 3 C's of business vision. This will probably make more sense to you here in just a second, James. But this is how you can string together a mission statement out of these 3 C's of business vision. And those 3 C's are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Let's unpack each one of these things. Now, this is going to be foundational. So you might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with the price of tomatoes as it relates to networking? If you're unclear in any of these 3 areas, your networking is going to be fragmented. It's not going to make sense to the people who are standing in front of you. They're like, well, what do you do exactly? Right. And if you're not clear, it doesn't get magically more clear as it leaves your mouth into their ears. You've got to be super, super clear in all 3 of these areas. And if there's any fragmentation in any of these areas, your networking, your sales, your lead generation is going to be ineffective, and you won't know why. I'm just telling you, this is every single business that I have gone into as a strategist. When they have called me in, I start asking questions related to these 3 areas. And anytime there's a fracture or some sort of disconnection or misalignment, I don't know that disalignment is a word. Misalignment. We'll go with misalignment. Anytime there's any misalignment in any of these 3 areas, I'm telling you, I start to know pretty quickly why they're struggling. And it also goes back to company culture as well. So let's unpack these. Core purpose is specifically, what business are you in and what problems do you solve? And it's really important that you be highly specific in your answers. What specific business are you in, and what problems do you specifically solve? If you just say that I'm in real estate, that tells me nothing. If you tell me that you're in IT, that tells me nothing. If you tell me that you solve enterprise level solutions for people who have software breach issues related to international trade, I'm like, okay, you probably narrowed that down a little bit more than I would have thought. But if you just say, well, we build websites for who? Websites for what? For commerce, or just are you doing stuff on ClickFunnels? Like you've got to be really specific about what business you're in, and almost be obnoxious about what you're not. And that's okay. Like, remember, when it comes to marketing, and this is what networking is. Networking, it's marketing. It's lead gen. There's no getting around that, right? It really is. It's letting people know what it is that you do out there and bringing solutions to solve problems for people. And networking and again, networking and effective marketing does what? It educates. Effective marketing educates the consumer for something that they wouldn't even have known was a problem. Think about the difference between frozen traffic and cold traffic, right? There's 4 different areas. I wasn't going to necessarily go into this, but frozen traffic, cold traffic, warm traffic, and hot traffic. Most people think that hot traffic is like people who are ready to buy. No, not at all. Frozen traffic are people who don't even know that there's a problem. They don't even know that there's a problem coming up. And your job is to warm them up with knowledge. So frozen traffic are not even problem aware. Cold traffic is problem aware. Like, hey, did you know that this new tax law is coming out? No, I did not. You've warmed them up a little bit. Yeah, let me tell you about this tax law. Because of this thing that Congress passed or did this or whatever, or Parliament, wherever you happen to be, Parliament passed this new tax thing that's going to be doing X, Y, and Z, and this is going to be potentially going to be a problem for people who are in this particular bracket. You're like, well, crap, I'm in that bracket. Okay. What you have done is now you've made them problem aware and you have made them solution aware. Okay. So what happens is, so you're saying, yeah, so what has to happen is you have to structure this business this way. You have to make sure you do this, you do that, right? So you've made them solution aware, right? And they're like, okay, cool. How do you do that? Well, that's actually what I do, right? It's the kind of thing that I do. I work with folks who, structure their stuff this particular way so they can help avoid paying excessive amounts of tax. Okay, so let's walk through that a little bit, right? Because your core purpose is so clear, right? You have warmed them up through knowledge. You have made them problem aware, which now they're cold traffic. They are solution aware. They are now warm traffic. And now they are you aware, which means they are hot traffic. Now, just because they are hot traffic, does that mean that they are ready to buy from you? No, it does not. It just means that they are hot traffic. They are you aware. They are somewhere on the buying spectrum, but because your service might be, $20,000 or 20,000 pounds or 20,000 euros, they weren't ready to spend that amount of money. They're like, oh man, I got a budget for that. I have no idea. I got to talk to my bride. I got to talk to my business partner. Right? Does that make sense, Tamara? That is good. The warming. I know what you mean by that. I said a lot of things there, but they're not necessarily ready to buy from you. This is really important to start to consider as you're warming them up from frozen traffic to cold traffic, warm traffic, and hot traffic. That does not mean they're ready to buy from you. It just means that they are now you aware. However, since you are the one that brought them that information, there's something known as a recency bias. Because you're the most recent person to bring this information to them. That is what is that's what's important. Like they're gonna start to attach that to you. Okay. And there's all sorts of cognitive biases that come into play here. I'm not gonna bore you with all of them, but the point is, it's like thinking, has anyone ever recommended a movie to you, right? And that movie, like now you always attach that person to that movie. Right? It's that kind of thing. Especially if the movie was like a really good movie, you're like, oh, wow, it was a really good movie. Thanks so much. Right. So I want you to think about that. So let's go on to core values. So we talked about core purpose. Now we're getting into core values. So really important that you got to be clear on your core purpose. Core values, same type of thing. What matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you are no longer in business? That's critical, because the core values are what helps dictate company culture. Company culture and company brand are inextricably linked. That's just the way it is. So if you are, again, if we started talking about core values a little bit around character and things like that, if your core values are fragmented or let's face it, the core values of the company are not well defined, and therefore the company culture is not well defined, then that's going to be a problem. All right. So this is, again, how you're starting to get into making sure that your networking is dialed in. Now, lastly, is the client avatar. If you're not clear in terms of who you want to work with specifically and ideally, it's not going to get more magically clear in the mind of your network. And this is like, well, who do you like working with? Well, anybody who, stop right there. If you have to use the word anybody in your networking activity, I'm telling you, you're not specific enough. You've got to be really clear in who it is that you want to work with specifically as your client avatar. Because if you're just starting to talk about, again, I like to break them down geographically, demographically, and psychographically. Geographic is where they are. Demographic is who they are, and are they married? Are they single? Are they, are they young? Are they old? Are they rich? Are they poor? Like, that's the demographics. And then psychographics is how they think and how they buy. So when you're thinking in terms of psychographics, you should be thinking in terms of this acronym ALIA, A-L-I-A, their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations. When you start to think about their about their attitudes, the way that they live life, the way they approach life, the things that are important to them, this is really critical, because this is also going to dictate to you in terms of how they are going to buy from you, or how they are going to treat you. And if you're not clear on this, how is it going to be more clear in the people that you're networking with? So this is all stuff that you've got to get really dialed into. And I know this is foundational. I know this is there's different, this might be thinking, yeah, well, I got this stuff dialed in. Do you though? If you don't, I really want you to invite you to take some time to get dialed in on this, because I know there's been a couple people who've dropped off already. Maybe they've got this dialed in. Maybe they had to leave for other reasons, but you know what? Guess what? Maybe they just got so bored they didn't want to stick around. Okay, that's fine, because I have to address this stuff foundationally, because I don't know where they're at. And if they say, yep, that's it, and they may miss other things, that's totally fine with me, because this is about me being magnetic. And again, magnets do what? They attract, but what else do magnets do? They repel. And that's where you need to be magnetic in your lead generation and in your marketing and in your networking. If you're trying to be everything to everybody, I promise you will be nothing to no one. And this is going to be a problem when you're trying to find solutions for every single person that comes along, and then you have no pricing power. I'm just telling you, that's a big problem, especially among people who are entrepreneurs. They always try to find problems, or trying to find solutions for problems that don't belong to them. And that can be a real problem. And the problem with that is you don't have pricing power. When I started getting away from coaching and started getting more specifically into strategy type work and marketing myself as a strategist and not a coach, that really changed things for me. And not that I won't use coaching as a methodology or as a mechanism. And most people more readily connect with the word coach than they do strategist. But when I started marketing myself as a strategist, it's amazing how much pricing power that I was able to have, much more control over my pricing. And I didn't have to take hundreds of clients. I only had to take maybe a few dozen compared to hundreds before, and I'm making a lot more money. So I'm just saying, when you get that fragmented, and when you understand the psychology of the buyer and you're able to convey that in your networking, it really helps your referral partners as well. Let's see here. I'm in school and we had to do these things for our business plan. Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. Very good. Tamara, definitely a money before. I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. Definitely a money before dollars. Yeah, if you want to clarify that, Tamara. So that's the 3 C's of business vision. So core purpose, core values, and client avatar. All right. So let's get to, secondly, we're going to talk about the 4 core functions of business. And this has to be true for any business. And these 4 functions are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your client's journey happens in that order. They first experience the lead generation. That could be through any means, which can also be your networking, right? Your networking activities. It could be outbound lead generation. It could be inbound lead generation. It could be direct response. It could be billboards or direct mail, any sort of things like that. It could even be through affiliate marketing, these sorts of things, which is all starts in the lead generation and then goes through the sales, operations, and accounting functions. Now, I will tell you this, a methodology or framework, I should say, an ideology that I teach is something called infinite marketing, meaning that once these people are in your atmosphere, the marketing never ends. The only time the marketing would end with someone that is now in your swirl, that is now in waiting in your water, is that if they've died or they have demonstrated that they are no longer your avatar, right? If they like, hey man, thanks for reaching out, but I'm retired now. I don't need anything that you're doing. Okay, cool, right? Now does that mean that I would necessarily stop reaching out to them with things of value? Not necessarily, but it would change, right? The situation would change, not necessarily because that they might not be buying, but what if I was a realtor and I'd say, hey, look, I know that you're in your forever home, but do you know of anybody that may be looking to buy or sell a home? Well, do they have grandchildren? Do they have kids of their own or grandchildren that may be looking to buy or sell their first house or whatever it is? That's really critical, right? That's really important. So I want you to think about that. But generally the only time that you would stop marketing to people that are in your atmosphere is if they no longer demonstrate that they are your avatar or basically have died. So let's look at lead generation. Lead generation lets the world know that you're out there and using a variety of marketing approaches. And I mentioned this a few minutes ago. You've got outbound, inbound, direct response. The real difference between outbound and inbound is who initiates the marketing, right? So outbound is like the company initiates, right? That's outbound, where you're interruption type marketing, putting out ads, billboards, radio ads, YouTube videos, things like that, right? YouTube videos would be like, or YouTube ads, right? Or Google ads, things like that, where it's interrupting people, as they're doing their normal scroll. So a Google ad wouldn't necessarily be that, but generally you're seeing like where, like our Facebook ad would be better. Facebook ads, Instagram ads, things like that. Okay. Inbound would be more like a Google ad where people are saying, hey, who is the best dog groomer in my town? Right. And it pops up, and that's inbound. So where people are now they're kind of they're seeking you. So they've initiated that. Right. So that's where SEO and things like that come into play. Direct response is where you're putting a very specific call to action in your marketing. And that could be both in outbound and inbound. Could be anything like that. Your networking, obviously, we talked about alliances, joint ventures, similar things. I'm not going to get into the nuances between the differences. You can do press releases, affiliate type marketing, things like that. All of these things are various marketing approaches. Now, let's get to networking. And here's the truth about the word of mouth marketing. And the universal truth behind it is that it's always working. The question is it working for you or is it working against you? That's the truth, is it's always working. Now, I put this out there earlier on about the 3 C's of business vision. Now, for those of you who are taking, is Mark frozen or is it just me? I don't know. It might just be you. Let me just type in there to make sure. Not frozen on my end. Sorry for those of you who are seeing this on replay. Okay. So remember we were talking about the core values earlier on, right? Like the company culture. This is where company culture actually has a branding element all of its own, because it starts to attract the people that you most want to work for you. And if you're, especially for those of you who are looking to grow or scale your business, those are 2 different things, by the way. If you're looking to grow or scale your business, the best way to do that is by bringing in really high quality people. And what's the chum in the water that attracts really high quality people to come work for you? That's right. It's your company culture. And company culture is defined by your core values. So I know that sounds super squishy and like, woo woo, but it's really important if you have not taken the time to do that, especially if it's your business. Okay. All right. It sounds like we're back online. All right. So remember, the new gold rush here is for information, or it's for attention. And remember that money follows attention. So if your networking is not working, you have to start thinking about this as an overall strategy of owning the mental real estate of other people. Now, what do I mean by owning the mental real estate? For example, there was a couple folks on here who mentioned that they did a couple different things. Listen, I get it. I was that guy for a long time where I had like 7 different things as an entrepreneur that I was doing at any one given time. I had long-term rentals. I was doing flips at any one given time. I did a little bit of wholesaling. I had my broker's license. I was doing property management. I was also day trading, not to mention at the time I was doing some foreign exchange and foreign currency stuff. Not to mention I was also doing, on occasion, I was kind of moonlighting or freelancing like a fractional accountant, bookkeeper type. I was doing all these things. Guess how many of them I was doing well? Absolutely none of them. And that was the thing. And because I was so fragmented and I wasn't making money, I would run over here and do a little bit of this, and then I'd run over here and do a little bit of that, thinking that this stuff was just going to somehow just magically go on autopilot on its own. It was a mess. It was an absolute mess. So if I asked any one of the people closest to me what it is that I did, none of them could have told me any one thing because they knew me in all these different fragmented areas. So this was a real problem because as I relate to as it relates to credibility, I was massively lacking in credibility because I didn't own the mental real estate of anybody. Now, in my town, in where I live, there's people who only know me now as the real estate person. They don't know me as a strategist. You know why? Because I don't work for people in my town as a strategist. Because it's not that I won't. It's just that most of the people that come to me they have very specific needs, and they're usually 100 miles away or more, or on the other side of the world in a different country. So when they come to me asking me for strategy work, and they're like, well, what is it you do? And I have a very specific skill set within 4 core functions: lead gen, sales, operations, accounting. You start asking me about international trade or tax law in the United States, I'm going to say, look, we need to find those specific people that have that base of knowledge. I can't know everything, but I have a very deep breadth of knowledge, a deep range and breadth of knowledge within breadth and depth of knowledge within those 4 core functions: lead gen, sales, operations, accounting. And I'm really good at it. Right. So I own the mental real estate for those people. When they read the Time Wealthy Advantage, they're like, wow, this guy's actually pretty good at what he does. And I'm not saying that from an arrogant perspective. I'm just saying I'm at the top of my game as it relates to that. There's plenty of other things I'm terrible at. I mean, just ask my wife. I'm sure she'll be happy to tell you all the things I'm terrible at. But this is the thing that I'm saying, like, this is where you have to own that mental real estate of other people. And if they are saying, oh, like, James, what does James do? Like, what does James do? And ask, hey, go to people that are close to you and say, hey, if you were to describe what is it I do this as a test. Do this as a test of people that you normally might network with. Tell me what it is that you think that I do. And you don't get to correct them at that moment. You just say, okay, I just need to do a better job, I guess, of being more clear on what it is that I do and how I convey that. Because most people who don't know me, they'll go, oh yeah, he is, I think he's a business coach. Okay, I understand that. And if they call me a business coach, I would recognize that I've got work to do, because that's not what I do. I'm a strategist. I'm a life and business strategist. That's what I do. Right. So this is where you have to start recognizing you have to own the mental real estate of other people. So let's talk about the visibility, credibility, profitability formula. And this is something I learned from the BNI world, and that most people, when they are networking, they try to get to profitability way too fast. And what happens is, and there are some gender roles here, and I'm not trying to sound sexist or anything like this. I'm just saying this is actually based on some surveys that had been done, that women tend to be more relational and men tend to be more transactional. Whereas if I have a widget that I'm selling and another man will go, oh, I have dollars or I have euros for that widget, let's exchange widget for that thing, or euros for that thing. And that's right. So transaction done, right? That's very transactional, right? And generally for a person who is more transactional, again, it tends to lean more on the male side, that you can go for, you don't really worry about, you can go through the visibility, credibility, profitability thing pretty quickly, especially if it's a low dollar thing. If I'm selling this can of Canada Dry ginger ale, which if you've never had this, it's actually delicious. This is not product placement. It happens to be, someone dropped it off in my office. I was like, wow, this is cranberry ginger ale. It's actually quite good. So if I'm going to try to sell that and it's 50 cents, it's a low dollar thing. You go, okay, yeah, that's fine. If I'm asking $5,000 for something, or 150 grand, you better well know that it's going to take a lot of visibility and a lot of credibility before I'm going to get the profitability, because it's a higher dollar thing. There's more trust involved. So this is why I'm saying, like, the amount of trust that's needed is contingent upon how long you're in the VCP method, or in the VCP formula. So for people who are more relational, okay, again, it could be the same for apples to apples transaction. This is where it might take longer, right? Where you just, hey, let's get to know each other a little bit. Like, let's, again, pour me some wine, light a candle, romance me a little bit. That's the analogy. But this is the thing where people are very, like, right now, most of you are just meeting me for the first time. You're just meeting me for the first time. I am barely visible to you. Maybe I have demonstrated some credibility to you. Some of you dropped off and said, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I hate his face, or whatever reason, they just left. Okay, fine. Most of you have stayed. Most of you maybe have said, okay, what he's saying, he's got a little bit of credibility here. I'm going to listen to him a little bit. Are you ready to start referring me to people? No, probably not, because we're not there yet. It's too much too soon. That's why you have to recognize the visibility, credibility, profitability formula, because what ends up happening is people jump from visibility to profitability too quickly, and all it creates is irritability, right? So you have to recognize that this does take time, and some people and some transactions just take longer based on the nature of the transaction. So you have to recognize, if you're trying to go into a networking event, and you're in this networking event and you're trying to sell to everybody there, especially when you're buying people, or they just hand you a card and go, let's do business, right? Dude, too much too soon, man. Unless you're selling 50-cent cans of soda, right? Way too much, way too soon. So you have to recognize that sometimes this takes some nurturing, just like Tamara's doing. It sounds like she's really doing a great job of nurturing people. Now, again, is she always reaching out with people to say, hey, are you ready to buy my stuff? Probably not. Sounds like she's got more emotional intelligence than that. But realistically, this is about demonstrating and leading with value, right? So again, this is just the main thing. And again, coming back to, it comes back to, if I was to ask these people who are the closest to you, if I was to ask the 5 closest people what it is that you do, and in terms of how visible you are, like, and how much they know you, what would be the answer that you would get? Again, are you owning their mental real estate? It's important that you be divisive. It's important that you be magnetic. Take a stand. Be attractive to the people that you want to work with, and be repelling of those you don't. That's okay. If someone comes to you and says, hey, man, I've got a referral for you, and they start describing them, and you're like, that's not really a good referral for me, and I'll explain why, right? And don't feel compelled to work with them because they're bringing you a referral. Hey, look, I'm happy to talk with them. I'm just letting you know I probably won't work with them, because generally the type of situation, like, I can't make, no offense, I can't make money from someone like that, right? It would be like if you were a realtor and someone says, yeah, they've declared bankruptcy 6 times in the last 5 years, which I think is impossible. But they've only had 14 foreclosures, but you're a mortgage broker, right? You can get them a loan. You're like, no, that's not going to work, right? So I'm saying it's important to be divisive and take a stand. Don't feel like you have to do everything for everybody. And then also ask for the referral. Now, I'm going to go a little bit off script here. We've got a little bit of extra time. So I'm just going to take an extra second. Ask for the referral. For those of you who are in networking, but you also do your own sales, how many times do you ask for the referral in the very beginning part of the actual sales conversation? Not the networking conversation, but the actual sales conversation. So for those of you who are actually doing your sales as well, so in other words, we're sitting down and we're at the discovery session, right? We're having the initial sales conversation. You're saying, oh, cool, Mark, I want to buy insurance from you. And I'm an insurance guy. And I say, cool. Tamara says, no, I am not. And thank you for your comment. Okay, very good. So this is what I'm saying. Like, when you're going to ask for, like, let's say that me and Tushar are meeting, and Tushar and I, like, I'm going to, we're in a selling conversation. It's a discovery call. And I'm saying, okay, cool. Hey, tell me a little bit about what your needs are. Okay, great. Who are all the decision makers? How quickly are you looking to do this? These are some very typical upfront questions that I ask. Okay, who are all the decision makers that need to be involved? How quickly are you looking at this? What kind of budget do you have? Okay, great. Hey, just listen. We're going to meet separately because I need to put some information together, and kind of we'll need to have a separate meeting. But I just want to let you know: is it okay, Tushar, if I get a lot of people who send me referrals, and I just want to know that is it okay if you maybe think about who you might be able to refer to me after the fact. We'll come back and is it okay if I ask you that later so you have a little bit of context? Is it okay if we circle back to that? Because referrals are really important to me, and I really want to work my tail off on getting you good service. So is it okay later on that we come back to that? No one's ever going to say no to that because you're asking them for the referral later. You're just asking them permission now to circle back on that, but you're bringing it up now so they can truly think about it. And you're just basically saying, hey, look, I just want to ask you for the referral. Is it okay if we circle back on that? But I just want to give you an opportunity to think about that now, right? And no one ever says no, but ask for the referral. Ask for the referral in the selling conversation. Tushar says my answer would be based on the outcome of our conversations. That's exactly right, Tushar, as they should. So remember, at that point, we're only in the discovery, in the discovery call. So you might say like, yeah, I mean, generally, yeah, I mean, as long as everything turns out okay. Yeah, absolutely. If everything turns out okay. That's why I'm asking this up front, because I want you to know that I'm going to work my tail off for you, like to get you the best pricing and quotes and insurance and everything else that you may need. Okay. That is why that's so effective. So I'm saying I've never had anybody say no to me on that. And generally, if I get to the end and it's been a complete mess, do you think I'm going to circle back around and say, hey, so this has been a complete mess? Go ahead and think about that referral for me, right? Like you have a choice of bringing it back up or not. Okay. So I'm just saying it's a really powerful way to loop that in where you can ask for the referral, especially from your existing client base. James says, I ask when the client gets a win from the strategies I've recommended. Okay. However, I set the expectation that I'll be asking for the referral as a business thrives on them. That's perfect. And again, you could do that, but you could also say that in advance of that, James, is say, hey, as you get some wins, my job is to get you some wins. And if you start getting some wins, I just want you to start thinking of maybe some people that you could ask for a referral. But again, if it works for you to wait until they get some wins, totally fine. But I just don't want you to be afraid to ask for the referral up front. I know some people who do this, especially some realtors who do this, and they only have referrals for referral-based marketing. It works out really, really well from a referral basis. But again, this also contingent that you lead with massive amounts of value. Now, what am I talking about? This is why you have to have a deep understanding of your avatar. For example, if you're working with generally people who are married that have younger children at home, what do people who are married with younger children at home, what do they generally need? They generally would love to have a couple of hours to themselves. So if you came across knowledge where there's like, a community, community daycare being held at its local church or something that might, people might trust, like, hey, just wanted you to know there's like a parents' night out and there are going to be all these people here. Didn't know if that might be something that you might want to drop your kids off so you can go and have a date night. Oh my gosh, yes, that'd be great. My wife and I haven't had a date night in 4 months. Right. It's not a daycare, but it's like this little gym that we bring our daughter to. They had a parents' night out, and my wife and we went home and we sat on the floor and we ate pizza. It was so nice for like 2 hours. We didn't have any children climbing on us. It was fantastic. We have a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So just getting some time with my bride was absolutely amazing. But that woman who runs this gym, this daycare, it's not a daycare, but it's like a gym for little kids. She leads with lots of value, and it cost us like $10 for the night. We were like, oh my gosh, like this person. I mean, do you think we're going to tell everybody that's got kids about this place? Yeah, it was a great way for her to lead with value. So let's talk about some success strategies. I want to talk really quickly about 15 reasons why people buy. I'm going to talk about 7 principles of persuasion by Robert Cialdini. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that but I'm going to hone in on one specific thing around reciprocity and then some just mistakes to avoid. I want to put this up on the screen, and I really just want you to use this as some homework. These are really, really solid reasons. Are there more than 15 reasons why people buy? probably, but this is the reasons that I came up with it. People buy because they want to make money, save time, avoid effort, escape pain, et cetera, et cetera. You can read this. But what I'm going to suggest for you is I really want you to take and come up with as many reasons how you directly or indirectly help people make money, or how you help people directly or indirectly help people save money or save time, avoid effort, escaping pain, right? You should come up with as many reasons as you possibly can. Come up with 10 reasons under each one of these headings. And now you have 150 data points on how you provide value to your clients. And that is what I'm saying. When you can do that, when you get really clear, and some of these answers, like I said, directly or indirectly, when you get, yeah, some of those answers are going to be a little goofy, but all of a sudden, when you may come up with a zinger that you go, wow, I never really thought that that's something that I do for my clients. One of the things that I do as a strategist, I never really thought about it, but I save my clients a massive amount of time. I save them a lot of time. You know why? Because I spend a very large part of my day reading and researching things and topics that would be relevant and important to my avatar. Well, guess what? My clients don't have a lot of time. What they don't have a lot of. They don't have a lot of time to do that sort of stuff. So what I do is I take all that information and distill that down into the things that are relevant to them in that moment. And when they come to me and they say, hey, this is, and I have this, I have a very unusual set of skills where I can look at things from a very broad perspective and then boil it down to its finest parts. It's a skill set that I have. Not everybody has it. Many do, but this happens to be mine. But I also can take that information that's been distilled down and give that to them in a bite-sized nugget that they can implement right away. It saves them a massive amount of time. So the few hundred or a few thousand or whatever it is that they're paying me, depending on the arrangement, it's the value is far more than that. But I never would have realized how much time that I save my clients until I went through this exercise and how I do that. So I really want you to think about going through this exercise and really getting creative with that. Now, I'm going to, like I said on this one, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but the 7 principles of persuasion are related to reciprocity. Reciprocity, again, if I give something to you of value, you're going to give something to me of value. Commitment and consistency. If I make a micro commitment to you, most people want to stay consistent in their commitments. So that's how you end up making micro commitments that end up becoming bigger commitments. Social proof, that's in the form of testimonials. When it comes to liking, people will do business that people that they not only know, like, and trust. Bob Berg had said that, but also the people that are like you. Again, that goes back to affinity. That goes back to, are they similar, right? Authority. Do you have authority? Is there actual scarcity based in what you have? And of course, are things familial, meaning are they connected in some way? But the main thing on this goes back to reciprocity. And this is why your networking might not be working. How much value have you brought to your network? How much value are they experiencing from you? When's the last time you reached out to someone in your network and brought them something of value with no expectation of them paying you for it? Meaning, hey, here, you mentioned that you really like narwhals, right? And here is a cruise that's going to go on narwhal spotting here in, or in Norway or something, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, thanks so much. That's super cool, right? That's reciprocity. That's when you start to look for things that they might be interested in, or something that might be in alignment with them and their avatar. If you bring them business, or if you're constantly looking for business for them, that's reciprocity. And that may be why your networking is not as effective as it could be. So think about that. I'm telling you, out of all of these things, when it comes to networking, reciprocity is the key to the kingdom. When I have brought a lot of people value, the most value that I could bring to them in all sorts of ways, information, training, sometimes just friendship. But when I brought them clients or business, I'm telling you, I would get it back three to five fold. And I never really kept score with stuff like that, but I would say, hey, how did that work out? If I'm asking Tamara, hey, Tamara, how did that referral work out for you? And, oh yeah, I contacted them, didn't work out, but you know what? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure it was taken care of. Right. And that was the one nice thing about BNIs, because it made sure that we were taking, keeping track of stuff like that. But these are some basic mistakes to avoid: is having an unclear message, failing to follow up, Tamara's got it dialed in. She's got it. I mean, it sounds like she's got a lot of work ahead of her, but that's great. But I'm just telling you, not following up is the number one thing that I see people who struggle with their networking. That is it right there. It's failing to follow up. You have to make sure you follow up and be consistent in that. Monopolizing someone's time. I definitely see this also in networking events where people spend way too much time with one person and that other person's kind of like, yeah, dude, I kind of want to go network with other people. And even if they don't, leave them alone. Like, just don't try to monopolize too many people's times all in one session. That's just, just have some emotional intelligence about that. Let's see. Tushar, what are the best places to get referrals to get max value? That's going to depend on what you do, Tushar. I mean, you kind of want to fish where the fish are, but you also don't want to be selling to the crowd. So it depends on where you're at. I mean, but you can network literally anywhere. You can network literally anywhere. The main thing is that as you meet people, chances are you probably have a fair number of people already in your phone that you're not networking with consistently. So the chances are, like, if you're not already taking care of the people that are in your phone, why are you looking for new people? Make sense? So start by with the people that are already in your phone, the people that are already in your social media, and just start asking them, hey, who do you know that might, that I could get some benefit to this? But again, you're not trying to sell to them. You're bringing and demonstrating value. And maybe just even having a quick virtual coffee, 15, 20 minutes of coffee, of Zoom coffee that you could do every single day with a different person, and make sure you're following up with these people within 45 to 60 days. Tamara says all the time, I go the extra mile. I get additional items with their purchases. Excellent. Good job. Tushar says, makes sense. There's fortune in the follow-up. That's exactly right. Tamara, you got it dialed in. You should be teaching this. I'll just turn it over to you. You got it figured out. But good for you, because I'm telling you, like, sometimes we need to hear this stuff just to reaffirm that what we're doing is right, because that's exactly what I wouldn't be anywhere near as successful if it wasn't for my networking and all the time and effort that I put into it. Inauthenticity, I will tell you, this is a death knell. If you're not authentic, if people feel like you're a phony, they are going to catch you in a heartbeat. Don't be inauthentic. Make sure you're leading with authenticity. Be who you are. Be on your best behavior, though, right? Like, it's like, well, that's not who I am. Well, learn some better behaviors, right? You can behave differently, in different situations, but be authentic. Be authentically who you are. That's what's going to attract the most authentic relationships and referral partners. But also not knowing the crowd, not knowing who you're going and talking to, not having a plan. That's probably the biggest thing. And also being too transactional and not recognizing that some people need to be more relational, especially if you have a high dollar product. Some of the people who hire me for consulting, they're close to 5, sometimes 6 figures. And I need to get to know them a little bit, not to mention because I don't necessarily want to take a check from someone that I feel like it's going to be a miserable experience. I'm at the point in my life now where I want to take and work with people who are really enjoyable to work with. And if I'm not going to enjoy working with them, I'm not going to take their money. There's no amount of, I've done those sorts of arrangements before, back when I was a W-2 employee, and that sucked, right? That creeping dread I would feel on Sunday afternoons, knowing I had to go back to that place tomorrow morning. I hated it, right? So the main other thing is make sure you get to trust as quickly as possible. And like I said earlier, the fastest way to create trust is to demonstrate competence. And keep in mind, like I said, the fastest way to destroy trust is to demonstrate a lack of character. Again, that goes back to that inauthenticity. Here's a fun little story. We're going to wrap up here, put the fries in the bag. But this is a photo of a guy. You can see his face plain as day. It's an older video camera. That's why the resolution is so bad. But this is back in 1995. There's 2 guys in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, had robbed several banks at gunpoint without any attempts to disguise their face. They didn't put no ski mask or anything else on them. But what they did do is they put lemon juice on their face, right? So they put lemon juice on their face, and they thought that was going to make them invisible to the cameras. And they were like, what? Right? Like, the guys could not believe that the cameras could find them. In fact, they even, when the police caught them, they said, man, I had the juice on. I don't understand. Right? So they said, so what happens here, I'm going to put myself down off the stage here for just a quick second. Tamara says, thank you for what you do, because I have found some nuggets in the information. Okay, excellent. I'm glad you got some some value out of this. So this is actually related to two researchers, two psychology researchers by the name of Dunning and Kruger. And this is what generally happens in any kind of endeavor that you're just starting out. So if you're looking at the x-axis along the bottom, that's competence, right? That's what you know, it's your knowledge. And of course, the y-axis is your confidence. So when you start out in any endeavor, you start out down here at the bottom, you really don't know much and you're not really confident. You don't really know much. You don't really have much confidence. But as you go into this, you start to get lots of confidence early on, right? Lots of confidence early on. In fact, it spikes until you get what's known to the peak of Mount Stupid. Peak of Mount Stupid. And then all of a sudden you you start out thinking, well, how hard could it be? And then you start realizing that you don't know what you don't know. And then you crest. And as time goes on, you start realizing you don't know what you don't know, and you fall down into what's known as the Valley of Despair. And the Valley of Despair is where a lot of people give up. They realize, oh my gosh, I don't know what I don't know. But if they keep at it and they start up the slope of enlightenment, they keep at it and they add to their knowledge, they keep learning, they learning more competence as things goes on. Eventually they get to the plateau of sustainability. So the main thing around this is to have a support system and keep on your learning. And I know a lot of people want to give up when they get to those, that sucky bottom pit of despair. I have been there, and that's generally where people, especially with people with the shiny object syndrome, as they go, oh, there's a shiny object and there's a shiny object, right? Because when things get too hard, it's a lot easier to shift. Well, I'm just telling you, it's a lot easier if you have a support system. So what I'm going to offer you here is a support system. I have a community on School. If you would like to join me, I'm just going to go ahead and put that link in the in the comments right here. And if you're interested, you are more than welcome. Hang on one second here. Let me actually find it. So if there's no cost to join this, if you just want to go ahead and hop in there, there is a cost for those of you who want to get into the actual training of this. But for right now, I'm just saying that right now it's priced at $39. It's going to be over $100. There's the next price jump. So I'm just letting you know, if you get in now, the price will never be cheaper than what it is right now. And this is really, truly an introductory price. This is not some ploy. It's not some scam. If you go in there in probably a couple of days, it's going to be probably, I'm going to do it by this weekend. It's going to be over 100. It's probably going to be 119. The reason for that is because there's people who are, if they can't afford the $119, they probably have other issues that they need to work on. Realistic. I'm probably not going to be the best fit. But what they're going to get for that is they're going to get some real training just around this sort of stuff, around networking, around business stuff, and also around building a business and how to build a sustainable business. So if you're interested in that and you want to just join it and check it out, there's no cost to just being in the community. But if you actually want the higher level training, like I said, that does cost. So if you're interested in that, go in there. It's a great community. It's nice because it's not on Facebook. It's a completely different thing. You're actually going to a platform to learn and not be distracted. I really, really enjoy it. So thanks so much for sticking around. Let me read the last couple of comments. Tamara says, I read a lot of books that feed me along with audios. Excellent. Self-care is the new healthcare. So feed your mind, your thoughts, and this will change your life. Absolutely, Tamara. I could not have said that better. I read about a book every 10 days is my average. I'm actually on book number 41 for this year. So I spend a lot of time reading and researching and doing those sorts of things. You said it exactly the way I would have said that. So congratulations to you. Michelle, thank you especially for the Dunning-Kruger effect reminder. Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny? I always enjoyed that. So very good. James, it was awesome. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. Love to network with you again. If you want to join me on School, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time.